Welcome to Paranoia Nights Tales. Close your eyes and let time loosen its grip. This story walks slowly between the dream you lived and the one that remembers you. You don't have to do anything right now. You're just lying there, feeling the way your body settles into its own weight. Maybe there's a faint noise in the room, a fan, a distant car, a soft hum you're used to ignoring. You've heard it so many nights, it almost feels like part of your breathing. And while you listen, your thoughts keep doing what they always do at the end of the day, circling old conversations, unfinished tasks, small regrets that don't matter as much as they pretend to. There's a point, somewhere between one thought and the next, where your mind quietly misplaces the day. It doesn't announce anything. There's no clear border, no line that says awake on one side and asleep on the other. Just a slow softening, like the focus ring of a camera turning a fraction of a millimeter. The room you're in is still here, but some detail is already beginning to blur. A corner, a shadow, a sound that keeps slipping further away. You might recognize this feeling, that almost floating, not quite drifting moment where you know you're still awake, but the world around you has started to lose its edges. The ceiling feels a little farther. The walls feel a little less solid. The clock, if there is one, stops being a strict, ticking thing and becomes more like a vague memory that time is supposed to exist. I know this place too. I've been here many nights, suspended on the fading edge of waking, watching reality loosen without ever quite breaking. People try to define lucid dreaming with precise words, talk about awareness and control, about tests and techniques and tricks, but it rarely feels that neat from the inside. Most of the time, it starts more quietly than that. It's the sense that something in the scene doesn't quite match the way the world behaves when you're fully awake. Yet it doesn't alarm you. Instead, it feels familiar, as if you've stood in this exact arrangement of light and silence before in a night you can't fully remember. Maybe it begins with the light. It doesn't have to change color dramatically. It only has to grow a little too soft, as if someone placed a thin layer of mist between your eyes and everything else. Or maybe it's the texture of sound. The hum of the room stops being a background noise and becomes a kind of cushion, dulling the sharpness of every thought that tries to rise. Even the air feels different, thicker or slower, as though it's gently guiding each breath rather than simply letting you pull it in. In moments like this, you might notice your own thoughts behaving strangely. They arrive in fragments instead of full sentences. A memory of walking down a hallway merges with the sensation of lying perfectly still. A face you haven't seen in years sits quietly beside the shape of your curtains. None of it is logical, but it doesn't need to be. Logic belongs to the bright waking hours. Here, on this soft edge, your mind is allowed to rearrange itself into quieter patterns. You might catch yourself thinking, "This feels familiar. I've been here before. Not in this exact night, maybe, but in this soft overlap between what's happening now and what once happened in some other dusk, some other room." It isn't scary. It's simply strange in a gentle way, like recognizing a song from the first note without remembering the name. I've had that thought too, lying still, feeling my own mind tilt, realizing that I am both here in a bed and also there in a place that doesn't yet have a clear shape. On nights when you are very tired, this borderland can stretch. It's as if time itself slows down to keep you here for a while longer, letting you adjust, giving you space to notice what's happening without pushing you fully into sleep. Your eyelids grow heavier, but your awareness remains, floating just above the surface of your breathing. You can feel your body sinking deeper into the mattress, and at the same time, a small, quiet part of you stands at a doorway you can't quite see, waiting for something in the dark to shift. That's where lucid dreams like to begin, not in sudden revelations, not in bursts of clarity, but in that subtle recognition that something has changed, and you are still here to notice it. You and I are standing together at that fading edge right now. The room around you is still the room you know, but its borders are already softening. The night is taking its time with you, gently, patiently, as if it knows that soon you'll cross from waking into a dream that understands you're awake and will quietly reshape itself around that simple fact. You might not notice the exact moment when the dream begins. Most people don't. It doesn't arrive with a shift in temperature or a sudden change in scenery or any dramatic sign that something has left the waking world and stepped into the softer, stranger one beneath it. Instead, it tends to slip in quietly, through the smallest detail, the gentlest inconsistency, the faintest sense that something familiar has rearranged itself by a fraction. It often begins with a light. One moment, the room around you is the room you know, the ceiling, the dim shapes of furniture, the faint glow from a screen or hallway. But then the light grows a little thicker, like it has weight to it, like it's settling gently on the surfaces around you. Shadows soften, edges dull, the air turns almost translucent. Nothing is wrong, but everything is different in a way you can feel more than understand. That's usually the first sign. Not the strangeness itself, but the quiet awareness of it. You might find your eyes moving to a corner of the room without knowing why. You don't expect anything there. You're not looking for movement or figures or anything frightening. You're just drawn, as if your attention remembers something your conscious mind doesn't, the way a dream often remembers you before you remember it. Maybe it's the way the corner looks too still or too symmetrical or too perfect in its shadow. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it seems like it's pulsing with a softness you can't explain. Whatever it is, it's gentle, a small tug, like a memory trying to surface, and you lie there, blinking slowly, noticing it. There's a common moment in lucid dreaming. People don't talk about this part often, but it's real, where you know the world around you is shifting, and instead of fighting it, you simply accept it. Not out of bravery, but out of a deep, strange familiarity. As if this is something you've practiced in another life, in 100 small, forgotten nights, slipping back into a place that has been waiting for you. You might feel your awareness rising just a little, not in a sudden jerk, but like a slow inhalation that doesn't quite end. Your chest fills with a breath that seems too soft to be real. The air around you grows warmer or cooler. No one ever agrees on which, and you get the feeling that the room, or whatever the room is becoming, has begun to pay attention to you, not in a threatening way, not in a watching way. More like the way a field of grass bends when someone steps lightly through it, an adjustment that acknowledges your presence. And then comes the second sign. Something you know should be solid feels slightly out of place. A pattern in a curtain repeats too evenly. A line on the wall curves where it shouldn't. An object, maybe your pillow, maybe the shape of your blanket, seems to drift by the smallest amount when you aren't looking directly at it. Not the kind of movement that would ever wake you, the kind that feels considerate, soft, almost polite. You've experienced this before, haven't you? That odd gentleness to the impossible. I have too. That's why it feels so easy to recognize. You don't sit up, you don't question it, you just breathe a little deeper. And something in the air seems to breathe with you, like the dream is adjusting itself to the shape of your awareness, matching your rhythm, waiting to see how present you plan to be. If you focus too sharply, the feeling slips. But if you let your attention drift, not forward or backward, but sideways, into that quiet space beside your thoughts, the scene becomes clearer. The room around you stops being the room you know, not because it changes suddenly, but because you become aware of the gaps between what you expect and what you see. Maybe the walls shift color, fading toward a soft blue-gray you've never seen in waking life. Maybe the ceiling grows higher by an imperceptible measure. Maybe the air takes on a faint scent you cannot name, a mixture of dust, night air, and something that reminds you of a memory you can't quite retrieve. You begin to recognize the moment, not the dream, no, not yet, but the sensation of being conscious inside a place that isn't entirely anchored to reality. The first recognition is never dramatic. It's subtle, quiet, almost shy. It's the acknowledgement that you know, and the dream knows that you know. There's a soft shift then, like a curtain stirring, a faint rustle in the fabric of the moment. You can feel your body growing heavier, your limbs sinking deeper into whatever surface lies beneath you, while your mind grows lighter, hovering just above your breath. It's not unpleasant. It's a gentle looseness, a drifting sensation. At some point, you might blink, and the space between the blink feels longer than usual, as if your eyes rested a little too long in the darkness before opening again. When they do, the room is a little different, just a shade, just a tilt, just enough to confirm what you've been feeling. You are still here, but not the same here you began in. Something in the dream is unfolding, slow as fog rolling over an empty field, and you are inside it, aware, calm, drifting deeper with each breath. Lucid dreams often begin exactly like this, not with control, not with excitement, but with recognition, a soft, steady knowing. The moment the world tilts toward the dream, and you tilt with it, without resistance, without fear, as if some quiet part of you has been waiting to return. And now, with the first recognition settling gently around you like a second layer of night, the dream finally starts to take shape. At some point, without any clear line or signal, the space around you stops pretending to be the room you fell asleep in. There's no jolt, no sudden shift, just a slow, steady rearranging, like furniture being moved in another part of the house. Quiet, distant, careful not to wake you. By the time you notice, the change has already settled. The light is the first obvious difference. It doesn't come from a lamp or a window or the faint glow of a screen. It seems to seep from the walls themselves, a soft, pale radiance with no clear source. It has a color that doesn't exist in the day, somewhere between moonlight and memory, gentle and almost familiar. It doesn't hurt your eyes. It feels more like the room is exhaling light than holding it. You're no longer lying down, you're standing. You don't remember rising or moving or choosing to be here, but your body is upright, balanced, steady. When you look down, there's a floor beneath your feet, smooth, matte, slightly cool, and your shadow is there too, very faint, like it was drawn with smoke instead of ink. The room itself isn't large. It's not grand or ornate or impressive in any obvious way. It feels modest, quiet, like a spare room in an old house set aside for guests who seldom arrive. There's a table against the left wall. There is a chair beside it. There is a window on the far side of the room with curtains that hang perfectly still. There is a single door to your right, closed, with no handle on this side. That's all. No clutter, no decoration, no unnecessary detail. And yet somehow it doesn't feel empty. It feels occupied by something softer than presence, a sense of waiting that has stretched on for a very long time. You've seen this room before, not in a photograph, not in a movie, not in waking life, but somewhere in a forgotten dream, or a childhood half-vision, or a memory of standing in a place that never truly existed. You have stood in a room just like this. The way the light leans against the edges of the table, the way the air feels thicker near the window, the way the ceiling seems a little too high for such a small space. You don't know how you know, you just do. A soft awareness settles over you. This is not a random dream setting, not something your mind threw together from leftover fragments of the day. This room has been here before tonight. It has shape and patience and a quiet intention. It has been waiting. For you, you take a breath. The air is cool at first, then warmer as it leaves your chest, and as you exhale, there's a subtle shift, barely there, but unmistakable. The light in the room responds, dimming by a shade, deepening the shadows near the corners, like the room is matching your pace, syncing itself to your breathing. There is no fear in you, only a strange, calm curiosity. You're not here by accident. You can feel that. Lucid dreams can be wild, chaotic, full of sudden landscapes and impossible physics, but this one is not like that. This one is narrow, specific, focused. One room, 4 walls, a single window, a single door, a table, a chair, a light that feels like memory made visible. You look at the table. There is nothing on it yet, just a flat surface, slightly worn. The way wood looks after being touched by time, not by hands. If you run your fingers along it, you might feel the faintest ridges, the echo of grain, the ghost of old varnish. It's the kind of table that belongs to a place that hasn't been used in years, but has never actually been abandoned. It feels like someone prepared it for you, then stepped out, expecting you to arrive eventually. Near the window, the air has a different temperature, a barely noticeable chill. You can't see anything beyond the glass. There's no view of streets or sky or landscape. The pane shows only a soft, fog-like brightness, as if the world beyond it hasn't been rendered yet, or has chosen not to show itself. You could try to press your hand to the glass. In many lucid dreams, that's a test people use, seeing if their fingers pass through, or leave some unusual mark. But here, you don't feel the urge to test anything. You already know you're dreaming. You already know the room is made of something less solid than reality. You don't need to prove it. You're not here to break the logic of the dream. You're here to listen to it. When you turn slightly, your gaze passes over the chair. It's pulled back from the table, angled not quite toward it, not quite away. It's positioned as if someone once stood up quickly and never came back to sit down again. There's no dust on it, no sign of decay, but it carries the impression of absence, a vacancy that has matured, settled, grown quiet. It's easy to imagine yourself sitting there. It feels like you already have, long ago. Lucid awareness has a particular texture. You feel it now, the doubled sense of being both inside the scene and hovering just above it. Part of you is here, standing on the cool floor of a room that waited, and part of you is still a body lying somewhere in the dark, listening to your own breathing in a different dimension of quiet. Both are true. Both are real in their own ways. As you stand in the center of the room, a thought rises. How long has this place been here? There's no answer in words, but the space around you seems to respond. The light grows fractionally warmer, just enough to soften the corners, to erase the last hint of sharpness from the edges of the table and the frame of the door. It feels like centuries and seconds at the same time. Some dreams appear for one night and never return. Others come back again and again, wearing different faces, different layouts, but keeping the same feeling. This room doesn't feel new. It feels like one of those recurring dreams you never quite remembered when you woke up. A pocket of familiarity your conscious mind has always pushed aside, dismissing it as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was this, a quiet, patient place, waiting behind the curtain of daily thoughts, holding a shape for you and you alone. You might remember, faintly, a time you woke up with the taste of this room still on your tongue. Maybe years ago, maybe when you were a child, maybe in a week you were too busy to notice small, silent things. You opened your eyes with the sense that you just left somewhere important, somewhere dim and calm and pale. But you couldn't recall any detail. The memory dissolved as the alarm clock pulled you upright. Now you're back, only this time you're aware. You take another step, and the sound of your foot against the floor is almost too soft to hear. Still, the room seems to acknowledge it. A strand of light near the window brightens. A line along the ceiling shifts fractionally straighter. The whole space feels like a living sketch, subtle adjustments made in response to your presence. You wonder briefly if this room would exist without you, if it simply folds itself away when you're gone, like a page in a book closing, waiting in darkness until your mind wanders back someday. There's a strange comfort in that thought, the idea that somewhere inside the architecture of your sleep, a place is kept aside, unchanged, patient, a personal waiting room at the edge of consciousness. You let your shoulders relax. You let your hands hang loosely at your sides. You breathe slowly, and each breath seems to deepen the room, as if the space itself is synchronizing with your inner rhythm. Here, in this simple, undecorated chamber, the usual rules of urgency don't apply. Nothing demands your attention. Nothing needs to be fixed, solved, or escaped. The dream has no interest in testing you. It is simply making itself visible. This is what it feels like when a lucid dream welcomes you instead of challenging you. No chaos, no puzzles, just a single, clear space, quietly saying, "You've been here before. You can be here again." You allow the thought to sink in. You're standing in a room that waited for you, a room that might never exist in any other mind, in any other reality. A room shaped by the quiet overlap between what really happened and what you only dreamed. The recognition deepens. The edges of your awareness soften. The light holds steady, as if the room is content now that you have finally stepped fully inside. Somewhere beyond these four walls, beyond this single door and this veiled window, the rest of the dream is still forming, still adjusting itself to the fact that you are awake inside it. For now, though, it lets you stand here, breathing, remembering, not quite sure whether this is a place you once visited in sleep or a place you once glimpsed in reality and misfiled under dream. And maybe it doesn't matter. Here, on this side of waking, the difference grows less important with every slow, steady heartbeat. The room does not change all at once. It changes the way a resting body does. On the inside first, you stand there, breathing slowly, and the space breathes with you. At first, you might think it's only your imagination, the way your awareness stretches and contracts, the way your focus drifts from the table to the window to the door. But if you stay still long enough, if you let your gaze relax and soften, you begin to notice that the room is no longer entirely fixed. It's not melting, it's not warping, it's adjusting. The difference is important. Melting is what happens to things that cannot hold their shape. Adjusting is what happens to things that notice you. Your awareness is like a light in here, but not a harsh one. It's the kind of light that arrives just before dawn, when the world is not yet required to be awake, but is slowly remembering how. The room has been dozing in its own quiet, waiting in that half-sleep where a dream is real enough for itself and doesn't need to be examined. Then you arrived, lucid, and the balance shifted. You take another breath. This one is deeper than the last. As the air moves in and out of your chest, the walls respond by the smallest amount. A seam in the corner straightens. A hairline crack near the ceiling softens into a smooth curve. The shadow beneath the table lengthens by a fraction, then settles. None of it is dramatic. It feels more like the room is stretching after a long, long rest. You might have expected lucid dreaming to be loud inside your mind, full of bright colors, strange noises, sudden scenes. Sometimes it is, but not here. Here, lucidity is quiet. It arrives like a visitor the room already knows, and everything shifts a little to make space. You move your hand just a little, letting your fingers pass through the dim light that pools between you and the table. The air feels neither cold nor warm, but it has a texture like a very fine dust suspended in water, the particles of the dream itself. As you move, you notice something. The light doesn't simply pass through your hand. It bends around it, flowing, adjusting, as if it is aware not just of your presence, but of your intention. You're not trying to change anything. You're just existing clearly. That is enough. The room doesn't reshape itself to your will in some grand way. The chair doesn't fly. The window doesn't open onto impossible vistas. The door doesn't burst into another world. Instead, the adjustment is subtler. The distance between the table and the wall feels more comfortable, like it has shifted to the exact width your mind finds easy to hold. The ceiling height feels right in a way it didn't a moment ago, not taller or shorter, just correct. It's as if the dream has been guessing at what you need, and now that you are lucid, it finally has enough information to refine those guesses. The light near the window thickens, then thins again, as though testing different levels of brightness. The fabric of the curtains looks more detailed than before. You can make out threads you didn't notice, faint patterns that might not have existed earlier. When your eyes pass over them, they relax, losing sharpness again, blending back into the soft texture of the scene. It's like watching a breathing cycle in reverse. Inhale, the world becomes clear. Exhale, it smooths into a gentle blur. In waking life, reality does not adjust itself for you, not like this. Walls don't subtly move to comfort your sense of distance. Light doesn't soften itself to match your mood. Rooms don't acknowledge your awareness and reorganize their quiet around it. But here, the dream is not opposed to you. It's not a separate stage on which you've been dropped as an uninvited actor. It's more like a fabric that notices the weight placed on it and folds more neatly. You've felt this before, even if you didn't have words for it. That night you woke up certain you'd just finished having a long, complicated conversation with someone who wasn't really there. That morning you opened your eyes and knew you had spent hours in a building that doesn't exist. The dream had shaped itself to you, and you shaped yourself to it for a while. Now, though, you are here to watch it happen. You glance at the door. It's still closed, still without a handle. But something about it is different. The frame looks a little straighter. The wood seems a touch darker, or perhaps just more definite. It has made up its mind about occupying that part of the wall. This, the room seems to be saying, is where the door belongs. If you shift your weight from one foot to the other, the floor responds with the faintest echo, a soft memory of sound more than a real one. It is enough to give you the sense that the room has depth beyond what you can see. There is space beneath the floorboards, space behind the walls, space above the ceiling, not filled with horrors or mysteries, just filled with potential shapes the dream hasn't chosen to use tonight. All of this adjustment happens without hurry. Lucid dreams don't always rush to impress you. Sometimes they prefer to move as slowly as you will allow them to, aligning themselves with the pace of your breath. And your breath, right now, is very slow. In, out, in, out. With each cycle, something small changes. A line on the table surface straightens. A faint smudge on the window fades. The shadow of your body becomes slightly more defined and then softens again, like it's experimenting with how clearly it wants to exist. You begin to understand. Your awareness isn't just inside the room, it's part of its construction. Your noticing is a kind of tool the dream is using to refine itself. Where you look, the world becomes more precise. Where you don't look, it stays hazy, unfinished, waiting. If you turn slowly, letting your gaze travel around the room, you can sense this gradient. Near the center, where your attention has lingered, everything feels almost solid. The grain in the wood, the faint texture of the walls, the way the light bends. Toward the edges, things are less committed. Corners are rounder, colors are less certain, distances less fixed. You're not imagining it, or if you are, the imagining is the point. Lucidity doesn't always mean control. Sometimes it simply means that both you and the dream know you are here together, and both of you are willing to meet halfway. You take a step toward the window, not quickly, not with any rush. The floor, which had seemed cool before, now feels more neutral, almost matched to the temperature of your skin. That, too, is an adjustment. The dream is smoothing out anything that might disturb you. If a board creaks, it does so in a low, comforting tone instead of a sharp one. At the window, you find that the fog-like brightness beyond the glass has changed. It's not clearer, not exactly, but it has depth now. Before, it was a flat wash of light. Now it's layered, pale tones within paler ones, as though there is a landscape out there that has chosen to stay abstract. Your reflection rests faintly on the surface, blurred around the edges, more of a suggestion than a figure. You don't need to see outside. The dream understands that. It gives you the sense of a world without asking you to interact with it. Behind you, the chair makes a small adjustment of its own. It doesn't move in any visible way, but the distance between it and the table feels slightly more inviting, as if the room is offering you a place to sit if you wish, not pushing, not insisting, just leaving the option open, like a quiet host setting out a seat and then stepping back. You might notice, in this moment, that your sense of time has become elastic. You know that minutes are passing because breaths are passing, but the usual pressure of the clock is gone. Here, in this adjusting dream, duration is measured not by numbers, but by the number of small, gentle changes that have taken place. You've adjusted too. At the beginning, there might have been a question in you, a soft tension about what was real and what was not, about whether this was a memory or a fabrication, a remnant of some past night or a construction of the present one. That tension is less important now. The longer you stay, the more the distinction blurs. The room feels both real and unreal at once, and your mind grows comfortable with that. You become less concerned with explaining the dream and more willing to inhabit it. Somewhere, far behind all of this, your physical body lies resting, breathing in a room that does not shift to match your thoughts. But here, your awareness is allowed to be the quiet center of a moving world. The dream listens to you without words. It smooths out its edges. It softens its light. It rearranges its stillness so you can rest inside it. That's what this is. A place built not for spectacle, but for accommodation. A dream that adjusts the way a blanket does when you turn in your sleep, never complaining, simply resettling, reshaping its folds around you. You didn't command this room into being. You didn't design it piece by piece. You arrived, and it responded, and in the soft exchange between your awareness and its structure, something gentle was created. You stand there for a while longer, not counting seconds, not searching for meaning, just letting the world continue its quiet, almost imperceptible corrections around you. And as it does, you feel yourself adjusting too, less awake, less anchored, drifting a little deeper into the calm center of the lucid night. The room has grown used to you now. It no longer feels like a place you have stumbled into by accident. It feels more like a place that has finally allowed itself to be seen, slowly, carefully, piece by piece, as if it was waiting until your awareness was steady enough to hold what it wants to show you. You notice it when your eyes drift back toward the table. A moment ago, the surface was empty, smooth, bare, featureless. You remember looking at it, tracing its edges with your gaze, feeling the quiet of its emptiness. But now, without any dramatic appearance, without any flash or sound, something is there. An object. Small, ordinary at first glance, resting exactly in the center of the table, as though it has been placed with deliberate care. You didn't see it appear. You only see that it is there now. That's how many things in dreams arrive, not with spectacle, but with the simple assertion of existence. One moment, nothing. The next, of course, it's always been there. The mind is kind to its illusions that way. You take a step closer, slow, unhurried. The room doesn't react with any sharp movement. The light remains soft, the air steady, the shadows calm. The only thing that seems to lean toward you, just a little, is the object itself. From a distance, it might be anything. A folded piece of paper, perhaps, or a small metallic shape, or a worn piece of plastic, softened by years of being handled. It is the kind of thing that belongs in a pocket, or on a nightstand, or in the bottom of a bag, something small enough to lose, and meaningful enough that losing it would leave a faint, unfinished feeling inside you. As you come nearer, the details sharpen. For you, it might be a key. For someone else, it might be a train ticket. For another, maybe a ring, a coin, a bus pass, a hotel room card, a scrap of fabric with a pattern they can't quite place. The dream doesn't force one version on you. It allows the object to hover in that space where recognition is more important than definition. Whatever your mind is carrying tonight, whatever half memory has been waiting in some quiet corner of you, becomes the shape that rests on the table. You know this because the moment you really see it, that familiar sensation rises in your chest. I've seen this before. Not, I've seen something like this. Not, this reminds me of, but this. Exactly this. Every scratch, every curve, every faded color, every dent shaped by some contact you don't quite remember. It all feels precise, correct, exact. Too exact to be a coincidence, too specific to be random. Your breath slows without you telling it to. The room seems to listen. Lucid or not, dreams are good at mimicking significance. They can dress any object in the clothing of importance, wrap it in a glow, let it sit alone in the center of an otherwise empty space, make it wait until the exact moment you notice it. But this is different. This isn't just theatrical emphasis. This feels like discovery. You reach out, not to grab it, not yet, just to rest your hand above it. The air above the object feels slightly warmer, as if it's been holding a small, quiet heat for a very long time. A candle that burned out years ago, but left its warmth folded into the wax. You think, this is from a real day, but then right behind that thought, or from a real night, and after that, or from a dream I had so many times, it became real. The uncertainty doesn't push you away. It draws you closer. How many times in your life have you woken with the feeling that something was missing, some tiny piece of a moment that almost mattered? Not enough to change the direction of your life, not enough to define who you are, but enough to leave a quiet, persistent ache, an unfinished sentence, a door you never opened, a word you almost said. You look at the object, and it feels like the embodiment of one of those nearly forgotten moments. Maybe you once held this in your hand, standing at a station or a doorway or a bed. Maybe you turned it over between your fingers while thinking about leaving. or staying, or saying something you didn't say. Maybe you lost it that same day, or placed it down and walked away, believing consciously that it didn't matter. But something in you noticed. Something in you saved it. Not in a drawer or a box or a pocket, but in this room, that quiet, recurring space that doesn't fully belong to waking or sleeping. The place where certain hours you've lived or almost lived have been quietly archived. You lower your hand until your fingertips brush the object. The texture is exactly what you expect, and also what you don't. Solid, but slightly softened, as if the edges have been worn by hands that might have belonged to you or to some earlier version of you, someone you no longer remember being. The dream could have made it feel unreal, weightless, insubstantial. Instead, it gives it weight. Very gentle, but true. You don't need the full story. You don't need to remember the exact day, the exact place, the exact sequence of events that made this matter. The dream doesn't rewind your life and replay the scene. It doesn't flood you with images. That would be too much, too loud, too waking. Instead, it offers you a feeling, a single, complex emotion, carried quietly within the shape of this small thing, a mixture of longing, acceptance, mild regret, and something like relief. You close your hand around it. The room does not shudder. The light does not flicker. Nothing breaks. The world simply becomes a little more certain for a moment, as if the act of holding this object has allowed one loose thread inside you to finally find its place. The uncertainty doesn't vanish. It softens. You still don't know if this belonged to a real afternoon in a real city with real weather and real sounds. You still don't know if it was part of a dream you had when you were 12 or 20 or last year or last week. But you know it belongs to you in some way that matters more than accuracy. Lucid awareness lets you stand here between the possibilities and make peace with all of them at once. Maybe there was a day when you were supposed to go somewhere and didn't. Maybe this object was in your pocket while you made that decision. Maybe it fell out when you turned, dropped soundlessly between floorboards you never saw again. Maybe you dreamed about finding it years later, and that dream has been echoing ever since. Maybe none of that happened. Maybe all of it did. The room doesn't correct you. It doesn't insist on the truth. It doesn't offer a definitive explanation. It just holds the space where those versions of reality overlap and lets you feel them all at once without needing to choose. You open your hand again. The object remains there, resting on your palm, steady, unchanging. You don't have to keep it. This isn't about possession. It's about recognition. The dream has shown you that somewhere inside your life, whether in sleep or waking, you gave meaning to something small and then forgot it. Not because it was useless, but because there simply wasn't room for everything in your conscious memory. Some things sank. This one floated back up. You set it gently back down on the table. The wood accepts it with a faint, soundless acknowledgement, as if this is where it belongs for now. You feel no urgency to carry it with you when you leave this room. The connection has already been made. The unfinished feeling it carried is no longer quite so sharp. You don't know where you will go next in this dream. You don't know what comes after this room, after this object, after this moment. But you do know this. There are pieces of your life that exist right on the border between actually happened and felt so deeply, it may as well have happened. Dreams are where those pieces often come to rest, waiting calmly, without resentment, for you to wander through one night and notice them again. Tonight, you noticed one. You allow that awareness to settle into you, warm and quiet, like a small light placed carefully on a shelf inside your chest. Then you breathe in, slowly. Breathe out, slowly. And somewhere in the gentle shift of air, the room begins to prepare itself to show you what lies beyond the table, beyond the window, beyond this small, uncertain fragment of memory that has finally had the chance to be seen. The object rests on the table behind you now, but its presence lingers in a gentle way, like a scent that remains in the air after someone has walked through a room, or the faint warmth left behind on a chair someone just stood up from. You don't need to look at it again. It has already done what it came here to do. Its meaning has settled, quietly, into you. What waits next is not the object, but the space around it. You turn slightly, no rush, no firm decision, just the soft motion of awareness drifting in a new direction. And that is enough for the room to begin its next subtle shift. You don't hear any sound, no creaking, no bending, no settling. The change is more like the world taking a slow, deep breath. The wall that once stood smooth and unbroken in front of you now holds a shape you're certain wasn't there before. A doorway, tall, narrow, its outline blurred by the same dim, shifting light that filled the room when you arrived. It isn't open, but it isn't fully closed either. There is no physical door, only an opening, an absence, an invitation. The way dreams often create paths, not by building something new, but by removing whatever was blocking the way. You take a slow step toward the opening, and the floor beneath you responds with its soft, familiar stillness. No echo, no warning, just the quiet acceptance of your movement. The air changes as you approach, cooler by a degree or two, tinged with something faintly metallic, though not unpleasant, more like the memory of metal than the thing itself. You stop at the threshold. Beyond the opening, the corridor stretches into a depth neither bright nor dark, just softly unknown. Its walls are close together, but not claustrophobic. They feel ancient, though they show no signs of age. Smooth surfaces with no decoration, no seams, no texture. The floor appears slightly darker than the room behind you, with a muted sheen that catches light the way quiet water does. You take another step. Inside the corridor, everything feels thinner. The air, the light, your thoughts. It's not a narrowness that squeezes you. It's a narrowness that focuses you, like stepping into a long-held breath. You've felt this before, though you can't place when. Perhaps on a walk late at night, when the streets seem too empty, or in a building you once explored as a child, where hallways stretched far beyond their logical length. There is something liminal about corridors. They are not destinations, they are transitions. And dreams love transitions. Your footsteps don't echo. If sound exists here, it must move in slow motion, taking its time to reflect back. Or maybe the corridor simply absorbs it, holding your steps gently, the way the room held your breath. The walls on either side seem to lean inward by a fraction, less an architectural choice, and more a sign that the dream is guiding you forward, shaping the space so your attention doesn't wander back toward the room you left behind. Ahead, the corridor creates the illusion of distance, without ever confirming it. For every step you take, the far end remains slightly beyond reach, not deceptively, not frustratingly, only patiently, as though it wants to give you time. Dreams often do that when you're lucid. They slow themselves down to match your awareness. As you walk, you begin to notice the way the light shifts. It's subtle, barely perceptible at first, but with every few steps, the tone warms or cools by the slightest amount. The corridor doesn't flicker, it doesn't pulse, it breathes. There's a point where the air feels warmer around your shoulders, then cooler near your hands, then perfectly still again. You move through it the way you'd move through the shadow of a passing cloud. Along the right wall, you catch sight of something, not a picture, not a carving, not a door, but the faintest indentation, a recess barely visible, a kind of alcove. But when you turn toward it, it has already softened, as if it didn't intend to be examined too closely. Dreams can be shy like that. They show you a glimpse of something that feels like memory, then hide it again before your conscious mind can solidify it. A whisper of familiarity stirs in you, not strong enough to become a memory, just strong enough to say, "This place is not entirely new." You keep walking. There is no sound behind you, no shift in the room you left. But you know it is still there, waiting with its quiet table and its uncertain object, patient as ever. The corridor does not take you away from it, so much as pass you through something older, something deeper. Time behaves strangely here. The corridor feels long, but your steps remain slow and unconcerned. You're not in a hurry. In a dream like this, especially a lucid one, time is an ingredient, not a measurement. The corridor uses it the way an artist uses shading, softening here, deepening there, blending edges. Then, after what feels like several breaths, but could easily be more or less, something changes. The corridor begins to widen. It's not dramatic. No walls slide, no floor expands. It simply becomes more. More space around your shoulders. More air between you and the walls. More quiet. You only notice because there is suddenly room to breathe in a way you didn't realize you were missing. The air carries a faint, earthy scent now, like old paper or cool stone or a forest at night. You slow your pace. To your left, another indentation appears. This one holds its shape longer. It creates a small pocket in the wall, and inside that pocket sits nothing but shadow. Yet the shadow is comfortable, like a coat hung on a hook. It feels like an echo of a memory you once passed quickly and didn't stay long enough to understand. There's no reason to step into it. The dream doesn't expect you to. It just wants you to know it's there. You continue on. Eventually, the corridor shifts again, not in size, not in detail, but in tone. The air becomes heavier, not oppressive, just more grounded, as if you're approaching something the dream considers important. The silence deepens into a warmth that doesn't quite touch your skin, but rests close, like the nearness of someone breathing beside you. There is a moment, walking here, where you feel suspended, not trapped, not lost, just held. The corridor wraps around your awareness the way sleep wraps around a fading thought. Slowly, gently, without intention of letting go too quickly. It wants you to feel the passage, not the arrival, the passage. Lucid dreams often build these stretches of in-between. They are bridges between scenes, but also bridges between feelings, places where the dream calibrates itself to your mind, waiting for your breath to fall into a deeper rhythm. And your breath has changed. It is slower now, heavier, as if your body, wherever it lies in the waking world, has sunk deeper into its own weight. You reach the first hint of the corridor's end. It isn't a door. It isn't a room. It isn't even a change in brightness. It's a soft curve, the faint suggestion of the hallway, bending left, beckoning you to follow. When you turn the corner, the walls shift again, widening into a subtle arch. The floor grows smoother, reflecting the dim light in a muted glow. The air grows warmer, carrying a hint of something familiar you can't quite name. And there, at the far end of this new stretch of corridor, you see a gentle distortion in the space. A place where the world seems ready to open, not dramatically, not suddenly, just patiently, waiting for you to arrive. You realize something as you walk. The corridor isn't leading you away from the room. It's leading you deeper into the dream's memory of you. This is not a passage you travel alone. The dream walks with you, matching your pace, matching your breath, adjusting its walls and light and distance to guide you softly into the next part of the night. And as the end of the corridor approaches, you feel something in you shift too. A quiet readiness, a settling, a willingness to see what the dream has been keeping just out of view. The curve completes, the light steadies. The next threshold forms, and the corridor releases you, like an exhale letting go. The corridor exhales you into a new space, though new might not be the most accurate word. Revealed feels closer, as if the dream wasn't creating this place at the end of your walk, but uncovering something it had been saving, waiting for the moment your awareness felt steady enough to receive it. You step forward, and the air shifts. The change is subtle, soft warmth rising from the floor, coolness brushing your arms, a delicate balance that feels intentional. It's the kind of temperature you find only in dreams, not from weather, but from presence. The presence of a place that knows you're here. You pause at the threshold, letting your eyes adjust. The space before you is neither a room nor a hall. It widens slowly, like a thought forming in the dark. The walls aren't solid. They hold shape, but loosely, as though woven from light and shadow instead of stone or wood. Patterns drift across them, faint lines, dim pulses, suggestions of texture that change when you blink. The shapes don't move in response to your sight. They move in response to your awareness, a soft ripple whenever your attention lingers too long on one place, a calm stillness when your mind quiets. This is the first sign that the dream knows you're awake inside it. Other dreams pretend not to notice. They keep their scenery still, their laws unbroken, their boundaries firm. But this dream is like a lake surface touched by a fingertip. You don't need to push or stir or command anything. Your presence alone creates a gentle shift. You take one step into the space. The floor feels different beneath your foot, less like a surface, more like the suggestion of one. It holds your weight but doesn't resist it. It's almost like standing on compressed fog or packed moonlight, something that offers support only because you expect it to. And that expectation is part of the dream's awareness too. You breathe in, the space breathes with you. Not literally, not in any way you could measure, but in the way the air seems to rise with your inhale and soften with your exhale. You feel the faintest movement in the walls, as if they're expanding and relaxing in time with you. It isn't eerie, it isn't strange. It feels natural, like being in a forest at dawn where every leaf and every gust of wind seems to move with your pulse. You walk further in. Behind you, the corridor remains, its narrow shape watching quietly, though it doesn't feel alive. It feels like the spine of the dream, the path that led you here. Ahead of you, the space opens, not into a wide room, but into something much more difficult to define, more like a glade or a clearing, a center, a place dreams form around. At the center of this space, if it even has a center, there is a dim shape, not an object, not a person, not anything with edges. It is simply a presence, a faint fold of darker light or lighter shadow hovering the way heat hovers above pavement on summer nights. You feel no fear, only recognition, quiet and steady. This presence is not here to speak, nor to reveal anything in a direct way. It isn't a guide or guardian. It's something simpler, older, gentler. It is the part of the dream that noticed you. Dreams are often chaotic reflections of your mind, thoughts tumbling over one another, bits of memory stitched into strange patterns, places that never existed folding into ones that did. But lucid dreams have a point of awareness, a soft center where the dream's fabric meets your consciousness. And in this dream, that point stands before you now. You don't approach it with purpose. You simply walk toward it the way people walk toward warmth, instinctively, slowly, without thinking. The presence deepens in texture as you near it. The air thickens around you, not uncomfortably, just enough to feel more real. The soft patterns on the walls slow their drifting motion, steadying themselves. You sense that the dream is listening, not for words, not for questions, but for awareness. Dreams don't communicate the way waking minds do. They don't speak in sentences or symbols unless you force them to. They speak in feeling, in resonance, in adjustments so small you feel them in your breath before you notice them in the world around you. When you step within arm's reach of the presence, the world shifts again. The walls brighten by a shade. The floor firms slightly beneath your feet. The air calms, settling like snow that has decided it is done falling. It feels like the dream is acknowledging something, your arrival, your lucidity, your willingness to walk this far into its quiet. Your awareness becomes a mirror in this moment. The more you notice, the more the dream responds. The more the dream responds, the more you notice. A gentle feedback loop, a soft echo. You don't feel watched, you feel recognized. There is a difference, a profound one. You close your eyes, not to meditate, not to focus, just to feel. And when your eyes are shut, you sense movement, not in the presence, but in the space behind your thoughts. A barely audible hum, a faint vibration, the kind you feel on the inside of your ribs rather than through your ears. It isn't sound exactly. It's more like the dream's version of a whisper. Not information, not instruction, just acknowledgement. You exist, and it knows. You open your eyes again, slowly. The presence hasn't changed shape. It still does not have a shape, but its edges feel a little clearer, as though your lucidity gave it permission to gather itself. For a moment, you think you can make out something like a silhouette, not a human one, not anything familiar, just the suggestion of a curve or a fold, or a place where the dream's fabric bunches together. your chest relaxes. Your thoughts drift. This is not a being, it is a moment, a point of awareness within the dream's architecture, something like a hinge, something like a heart. When you step slightly to the side, the presence shifts with you, just a fraction, but enough to confirm the connection. It doesn't follow your movement, it reflects it, like a reflection in slow water. You move, and the echo moves, delayed and gentle, as though it is learning you in real time. The walls respond again. Lines appear that weren't there before, subtle vertical strokes, almost like brush marks, faint as dust on glass. They pulse once, twice, and then steady, falling into a rhythm that matches the slow rise and fall of your breathing. You realize the dream is sinking to you, not taking control, not surrendering it, just aligning itself. Calibrating. You take one more step forward, and something inside you loosens. A thought you didn't know you were holding slips out. A memory that had been floating at the edge of your awareness drifts closer, not clearly enough to be seen, but close enough to be felt. The presence reacts. The air thickens, then softens. The walls expand by an inch. The floor holds you more firmly, not like guidance, like empathy. You sense that if you placed your hand near the presence, it might lean into it, not as a creature would, but as a feeling might. But you don't touch it. You don't need to. Dreams don't need contact to communicate. They need attention, stillness, permission. You offer all three without realizing. The presence settles, deepens, calms. Something passes between you, something wordless, weightless. An exchange, not of meaning, but of awareness. A dream acknowledging the dreamer, a dream knowing that you know, a dream recognizing that this form of quiet lucidity is rare, fragile, and worth holding still for. You stand there, absorbing this. Then, slowly, the presence begins to fade, not retreating, not disappearing, just loosening its shape, unforming itself, the way mist unforms when touched by warmth. It returns to the walls, to the floor, to the drifting patterns, as if flowing back into the fabric of the dream. What remains is a pathway, a sense of direction, a soft pull in the air, like the tide drawing you forward. The dream has acknowledged you. Now it invites you to continue. You breathe once more, slow, deep, steady, and step toward the next unfolding space, waiting patiently in the quiet, lucid dark. When the presence fades back into the walls, the space does not feel empty. It feels quieter, not like a room that has been abandoned, but like a room that has just finished saying something important in a voice too soft for words. You stand there for a while, letting the silence deepen. It's a different kind of silence than before. Earlier, the quiet felt like a blank page, waiting, open, ready. Now it feels written on, as if something has been added to you, even if you can't yet read it. A subtle fullness in the air, a slow, steady settling inside your chest. When you finally move, you don't decide where to go. You simply lean gently in the direction the dream is already offering. A new opening has formed along one side of the space. Not a door, not a corridor this time, but a soft thinning in the wall. A place where the boundary looks more transparent than solid. You walk toward it. The closer you get, the less defined the edges become, until it feels as though you're stepping not through an entrance, but through a change in atmosphere. The light shifts, turning slightly cooler, with the faintest hint of blue-gray, the color of dawn in a city where the streets are still empty. And then you're there. A new room unfolds around you, and this one knows you in a different way. It's long and narrow, like a hallway that decided to stop trying to lead anywhere, and instead became a place all its own. The floor stretches out ahead in a straight line, soft and even beneath your feet. The walls are closer here, but not uncomfortably so. It feels like walking down the center of a memory, thin, focused, intimate. On the left side, at intervals that feel more emotional than geometric, there are what look like window frames. They are tall and slender, set into the wall with quiet precision. But they don't open to the outside. They don't show landscapes or streets or skies. They show scenes, not full, not detailed, not sharp, just fragments. In the first frame, you see the suggestion of a room, not this room, another one, the outline of a bed, a dim glow from a lamp, a hand resting on a windowsill. Everything is blurred, like a reflection in frosted glass. You cannot see your face, but you know the posture, the curve of the shoulder, the angle of the head. It's you, or rather, it is a you, a version that once stood in a moment you can't quite place. You step closer, and the scene does not sharpen. It resists clarity in a gentle way, as if it wants to be felt rather than examined. The distance between you and the glass holds steady. No matter how you lean, you cannot press closer than this. The dream is careful. It knows how much detail would be too much. Your heart doesn't race. Your breathing doesn't quicken. You're not looking at a ghost. You're looking at an echo, a faint imprint of someone you have been, or might have been, or nearly were, captured at the edge of an ordinary moment that never got a chance to fully register. You move on. The second frame holds a different fragment, a street, perhaps, or a hallway in an old building. You see your own back at a distance, walking away. The way your shoulders slope, the small tilt of your head, the way your arms hang at your sides, all of it painfully familiar. The scene is still blurred, but not by accident. The dream is keeping it that way for your sake. There's no need to remember the exact location. The important part is the shape of the feeling you carried that day, a kind of tiredness, not physical, emotional, a weight that never quite found words. You remember lots of days like that, don't you? When everything was technically fine, but some quiet part of you felt like it had wandered too far from something you couldn't name. This corridor of frames is full of those days. You walk slowly now, letting each window pass through your peripheral vision, only turning your full attention to a few. In one, you see yourself standing in a doorway, hand on the frame, poised between going in and turning back. You don't know what room lies beyond. You don't know whether you step through in that version of your life. The dream offers no answer. It just shows you the moment of almost. In another, you're sitting at a table, staring at an object, a book perhaps, or a phone or a cup. Something small but holding your focus completely. Your posture suggests you were thinking something important then, something you meant to act on, but never did. Again, no detail, no words, just the shape of your concentration, caught like a breath. You realize gradually what this place is. It is a gallery of near selves, the quiet echoes of you that were born inside brief, intense instants, and then forgotten. Not lost, not erased, just filed away somewhere Your waking mind never checks. You keep walking. You never see your face clearly. The dream is kind about that. It knows that faces carry too much, too many judgments, too many stories, too many old narratives about who you were supposed to be. Here you see outlines, gestures, tilts, silhouettes. Enough to know it's you, not enough to weigh yourself down. On the right side of the corridor, the wall is bare. It holds only your reflection, not a mirror-level reflection. There is no glass, but the surface has just enough sheen that you can see a faint version of yourself moving with you, a shadow of presence, you and your echoes walking between each other. At some point, you notice something strange. In one of the frames to your left, the figure that is you, the other you, the echo you, hesitates. You hadn't expected movement. Up until now, all the scenes have been still, frozen, like photographs taken through thick fog. But this one shifts. Your other self is standing in what looks like a quiet room, their head bowed, their shoulders slightly rounded. Then, slowly, their head lifts. The motion is small, delicate, drawn out. In the blur of the glass, it's hard to tell exactly where they're looking, but you get the unmistakable feeling that they are looking toward you, not at you, not through the glass, just toward. Your breath catches, but gently, like a skipped beat, not a racing one. For a moment, the corridor feels thinner, as though the distance between you and that other self has shrunk. The walls don't move, the frames don't move, but the space between your awareness and that echo feels almost non-existent. You know this feeling too, don't you? Those days when you feel like you're walking beside yourself, like part of you is half a step behind or ahead, watching, unable to quite catch up. Lucid dreaming pulls that sensation into focus. The dream has shaped it into something you can look at. You step a little closer to the frame, and again the scene refuses to sharpen. Your echo self does not fully turn around, does not reveal any dramatic expression. They simply remain there with their head tilted slightly, as if listening for something only you can send. What would you say to them, if you could? What would they say to you? The dream doesn't let you know. It doesn't translate. It understands that some connections are better felt than spoken. So instead, it gives you this, a shared stillness. You stand on one side of the hazy glass. They stand on the other. Two versions of you, both aware of a presence beyond themselves, both held in the same soft, unthreatening quiet. You don't reach out. They don't either. And somehow, that feels right. Contact isn't necessary. Recognition is enough. You stay there for a few breaths, letting the moment stretch, letting the reality of it sink in. That somewhere in your life, your waking life, your dreaming life, or both, there was a version of you who paused like this, who lifted their head, who almost became aware of something they couldn't name. Tonight, you are that something. The echo slowly lowers its head again, like a wave receding, and settles back into stillness. The frame grows a little more hazy, as if the dream has decided that this part of the exchange is complete. You continue walking. The further you go, the softer the scenes become. They lose detail, dissolving into shapes, colors, vague impressions. A doorway, a staircase, a desk, a window in a building you may have passed 100 times without ever truly seeing. These are the small, unnoticed hours, the filler moments, the in-betweens, and yet here they are, archived. Not because they were important in the way people usually measure importance, but because you existed in them, fully, quietly, unknowingly. You begin to understand something deeper. The dream is not just aware of you now, it has been aware of you for a long time. Ever since the first night you lay awake too long, staring at a ceiling that seemed too far away. Ever since the first time you walked through a corridor in the real world and felt for a second like the air itself was paying attention. Ever since the first half-remembered dream where you woke with the sense that someone, not a person, not a thing, just something, had shared the space with you. These echoes are not meant to haunt you. They're here to show you that you have been living in more ways than your waking memory allows. At the end of the corridor, there is no grand final frame, no climactic image that explains everything. Instead, there is a blank panel, pure, soft, empty, no scene, no silhouette, just the possibility of one. You stand before it. In the faint reflection on its surface, you can almost see yourself, the you that is here right now, in this lucid dream, standing between your reflections and your echoes. This panel is not for the past, it's for now. It's the quiet suggestion that one day, this very moment, this walk through the corridor, this awareness, this calm, may itself become an echo, something you half remember or think you might have dreamed or lived or both. You let that thought rest inside you without trying to hold it too tightly. Then, gently, you turn away from the wall of echoes. The corridor narrows again, the frames dissolving into smooth, unmarked surfaces. The air shifts back toward neutral, neither warm nor cool. The dream has shown you what it wanted to show, that you are not a single, fixed self, but a long, drifting line of versions, some remembered, some almost forgotten, some still forming. As you walk onward, you feel less like a single point moving through time, and more like a constellation of quiet selves walking beside you in the dark. And with that softened understanding, you drift a little deeper, leaving the echoes behind. For now, leaving the corridor of echoes behind, you might expect the dream to change sharply, to open into something brighter or stranger or more complex. But it doesn't. It becomes simpler, narrower, quieter, closer. The walls fall away gradually, not in any physical sense, but in the way your attention stops needing them. You walk, and the idea of a corridor remains, but the specifics fade. There is still a floor beneath your feet. There is still a sense of direction. But the details blur like small print softening on a page as your eyes grow heavy. What remains is movement, not fast, not purposeful, just forward. You feel it more in your chest than in your legs. Each step is less about distance and more about allowing your awareness to slide gently along a path the dream has already laid out. There's no resistance, no forks, no decisions to be made. You're not choosing where to go. You're allowing yourself to be carried along a line of possibility. And then, very quietly, you notice that you are not entirely alone. At first, it's just a feeling, a faint sense of weight beside you, not touching, not crowding, just existing in parallel. You don't see anyone. If you look directly to your left or right, there is only the soft, unfinished space of the dream, dim, depthless, neutral. But in the corner of your awareness, something is there, a presence shaped like a person, moving at your pace. You know without needing to be told that it is another you. not the same kind of echo you saw in the frames. Those were fixed, frozen in instants already past. This one is walking, now, with you. You don't feel watched. You feel accompanied. Your breathing adjusts to the idea before your mind does. It lengthens, deepens, falling into a rhythm that feels shared. Each inhale feels like two lungs drawing air. Each exhale feels like two bodies letting go at once. You've felt this before in waking life. Those nights when you walk alone, but it doesn't quite feel like alone. Those days when you sit on a bus or a train or by a window, and you get the sense that some other version of you is sitting nearby, just out of sight, thinking slightly different thoughts, looking at the world from a slightly different angle, existing in a life you didn't choose but almost did. Lucid dreaming pulls that sensation closer, gives it shape, but only just enough. As you move, the dream begins to reflect the two of you in small ways. Ahead, the path splits, not into separate routes, but into two bands of light on the floor, running side by side. They're not sharply defined, more like two gentle strips of slightly brighter tone, tapering into a shared vanishing point in the distance. You find your steps naturally aligning with one band. You sense the other self aligning with the other. There is no wall between you, no barrier, just a respectful distance. The dream doesn't show them to you fully. It never snaps into full clarity with a second body walking at your side. That would be too literal, too heavy. Instead, it gives you glimpses. A shadow briefly overlapping yours when you pass through a patch of slightly deeper darkness. A faint echo of footsteps, delayed by half a heartbeat, blending so neatly with your own you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. A feeling of momentum that doesn't quite match the weight of your physical body. You realize you're not meant to see this other you. You're meant to feel the distance between you, not as a loss, but as a gentle, constant truth. That you are always near other versions of yourself, paths you might have taken, choices you almost made, lives that exist only as soft outlines in the mind's quietest rooms. In this dream, the distance is made soft and walkable. You walk for a while like that, no words, no interaction, just parallel being. From time to time, your attention drifts toward them, and when it does, the dream shifts in response. The band of light under their steps brightens a little. The air on that side of your body grows a touch warmer. You never quite turn your head, you never quite look, but you know they are there. They know you are too. One breath, two selves. As your awareness deepens, the surroundings grow even more minimal. The path underfoot continues, but the notion of walls drops away entirely. Above you, there is no ceiling, no sky, just a gentle grayness that feels like the inside of closed eyelids. Around you, there is depth, but no detail. The dream is easing you away from structure now, letting the architecture dissolve, preparing you for the heavier stages of sleep. You notice your thoughts slowing, not just becoming calmer, becoming fewer. The internal commentary quiets, the questions fade. There is less, "Why am I here?" and more simple, "I am here." The longer you walk beside your parallel self, the less you feel the need to separate the two of you at all. Are they a past you, a future you, a version that made one different choice somewhere? The dream doesn't say, it doesn't matter. What matters is this: you are not entirely singular. You never were. Even in waking life, you are layered, a set of selves stacked gently inside one another, each tied to different times, different moods, different possibilities. Here, the dream is not trying to explain that to you. It's letting you feel it in the simplest possible way. Two paths, two presences, one direction. At some point, your steps slow. Not because you're tired. Dream bodies don't tire the way waking bodies do, but because the dream wants to show you something. Ahead, the two bands of light begin to merge. It doesn't happen suddenly. They don't slam together or tangle. They drift toward each other slowly, like two rivers flowing side by side for miles before finally choosing to meet. The space between them shrinks. The air thickens at the center, the way the air does before a rain that never quite arrives. You feel a quiet pull, not toward the other band specifically, but toward the space where the two lines of light will eventually overlap. Your steps carry you there naturally, and as they do, the echo of footsteps beside you falters just once, and then aligns with yours. For a brief moment, so brief you almost miss it. You and the other you are walking in perfect synchrony. Not almost, not nearly, not close. Perfect. You don't see them. You don't need to. You feel the alignment. A wholeness that is soft, not grand. A fullness that doesn't shout. A rightness so quiet it might as well be sleep itself. Your breath and theirs, your steps and theirs, your thoughts and theirs, all moving in the same slow pattern. And then, gently, the dream lets that moment pass. The two bands of light finish merging into one. The sense of a separate presence beside you loosens, like a hand slipping out of yours in the dark, not out of rejection, but because it no longer needs to hold on. You keep walking. Only now, the path under your feet feels different, heavier, deeper, more grounded. You are no longer divided. Not in the way you were. The other you hasn't vanished. They've simply joined you, or perhaps you've joined them, in a single, quieter line of being. You might not notice it immediately, but your awareness shifts in response. The kind of questions you were holding about reality, about memory, about what was dreamed and what really happened, lose some of their urgency. They don't disappear. They just sink below the surface, where they can rest without demanding answers. What rises instead is a softness toward yourself, toward all yourselves, the ones you remember clearly, the ones you barely recall, the ones you never got to become. The dream has let you walk beside another you without conflict, without sadness, without longing for what could have been. Just acknowledgement, just companionship. Just drift. The path begins to slope now, gently, almost imperceptibly. You are moving downward, but in the safest possible way. No falling, no tumbling, no failing. Just a gradual descent, like walking down a long, shallow ramp toward deeper quiet. You feel it in your body, or rather, in the memory of your body, the one lying somewhere in the dark of the waking world. Muscles releasing, jaw softening, hands unclenching, breath sinking lower into the belly. You're being carried toward deeper sleep, and as you go, the dream holds you as a single whole. One self made of many selves, all of them drifting together, further from the sharp edges of waking, closer to the soft, heavy dark that waits at the bottom of the night. You take one more slow step, and another, and another. The path continues, steady and sure, and you follow it, alone, but no longer lonely. At some point on the gentle downward path, the world around you decides it has done enough. Not in a harsh way, not in a sudden way, just in the quiet, tired way that evening decides to become night. You don't notice the exact moment it begins. One step is taken on a floor that still feels like a path, a direction, a choice. The next step is taken on something that feels more like surface. No particular texture, no particular material, just enough support to keep you from falling. The dream is simplifying. Details loosen first. The sense of distance starts to dissolve. The idea that you are walking from somewhere to somewhere becomes less important. You still move forward, but the meaning of forward goes soft, like ink bleeding slowly across paper. You might try to look around, out of habit, for walls, for horizons, for something to anchor you, but the space around you has already begun its quiet collapse. Shapes that once had edges are now only tones, slightly darker here, slightly lighter there, not quite forming objects, not quite forming anything at all. The color of the world settles into a muted gray, with hints of blue or brown or violet that are so faint they feel imagined. The sort of color you see when your eyes are half closed, when the mind is more interested in drifting than in naming. You're not losing the dream. The dream is letting go of itself. It has shown you what it needed to show. The room that waited, the object of uncertain memory, the corridor of echoes, the presence that knew you were there, the parallel self walking at your side. Now it's clearing the stage. Not by pulling the scenery away in a rush, but by letting it exhale, letting it sink, letting it rest. You feel rest spreading through you too. It begins in small ways, your shoulders settling a little lower, your neck releasing some invisible tension, your jaw unclenching without you asking it to. If you pay attention, you might notice that your arms feel heavier than they did before, as if gravity has quietly doubled, but only for the parts of you that are ready to sleep more deeply. Somewhere beyond this dream, your real body is lying still. The bed beneath you is holding your weight. The blankets are draped across you. You are safe there. You are safe here. As the world collapses softly around you, that safety becomes the only structure that really matters. The path beneath your feet fades a little more. It no longer looks like anything. It simply is. You take another step out of habit rather than need, and realize you don't feel any sense of going forward at all. You're suspended in motion without direction. It's not disorienting, it's freeing. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to arrive. You are allowed to simply exist, floating in this almost formed dark. The dream starts to withdraw its sound next. There were never many sounds, only soft suggestions, the memory of footsteps, the imagined hush of air moving in subtle currents, the echo of your breath. All of these grow quieter now, as if someone is slowly lowering the volume on the world. What remains, more clearly than anything else, is the rhythm inside you, the slow draw of breath in, the slower release of breath out, in, out, the body's oldest lullaby. The dream hears it, it matches it. You sense the entire environment, the dimness, the half-visible distance, the thinning path, pulsing gently in time with your breathing. With each inhale, the gray softens. With each exhale, it deepens, thickens, becomes more like sleep and less like scenery. Nothing is holding its shape firmly anymore, and nothing needs to. The soft collapse continues. Where there was once space, there is now only suggestion. Where there were once walls, there is now only tone. Where there was once the idea of a sky, there is now only a ceiling of darkness that feels very close and very kind. Your mind follows the world's lead. Thoughts that were once sharp and defined about what this all means, about whether it really happened, about how much of it was memory and how much of it was dream, start to blur. Their edges fold inward like petals closing for the night. You don't have to understand the dream. You don't have to carry it with you fully formed. You only have to rest. There is a moment, gentle and important, when the dream stops feeling like a place you are in and starts feeling like a feeling you are sinking through, downward, not in danger, but in depth, like sliding beneath the surface of calm water with your eyes closed, knowing you will rise eventually, but not needing to rush. Your feet stop moving. You didn't decide to stop. The dream simply no longer requires motion. You stand, or perhaps you float. It's hard to tell, wrapped in a darkness that is no longer empty. It is full of sleep, full of the heavy, warm quiet that lives in the deepest layers of the night. The last remnants of the world collapse around you like a folding screen. The memory of the room snaps softly into a single impression. Pale light, a table, a small object. The corridor folds into one long breath. The other you becomes a feeling in your chest, not a shape beside you. The presence at the center of the dream becomes a weightless point of calm. Then even those fade. Not completely. Nothing truly disappears in the mind. They just sink below conscious awareness, storing themselves somewhere safe, where they won't disturb your rest. The dream is doing what dreams often do when you drift into deeper stages of sleep. It is dimming its own story. You feel your awareness growing heavier, like a lantern with the oil running low. The light doesn't go out in a snap. It lowers itself in careful increments, respecting your need to stay gently connected enough to wake later, but far enough away from the surface to truly recover. If there are any questions still moving in you, they have become sluggish now, like fish in cold water. They might rise again in the morning, briefly, before the day pulls you along. But here, in this collapsing world, they are content to circle slowly beneath thought. Around you, the last structures of the dream give up their forms. The hint of a horizon bows its head. The faint verticals that suggested walls lean inward, then vanish. The softness under your feet stops being a surface and turns into an absence that holds you more gently than any floor could. You are no longer standing in a world. You are resting inside the feeling of it. A lucidity remains, but it has grown dim. You still know, faintly, that you are dreaming, or that you were. But that knowing now curls up at the back of your mind, like a cat tucking in its paws, content to stop watching the door. All that's left to do is sink. Sink into the weight of your own body in the real bed. Sink into the warmth around you. Sink into the rhythm that has been steady this entire time. Inhale, exhale, a little slower now, a little deeper. The dream has done its work. It led you through rooms of memory and echoes, through corridors of almost selves and soft awareness, only to bring you here, to a darkness that is not empty, but full of rest. Gradually, even the idea of you in this dream begins to blur, not lost, not erased. just loosened, like a name whispered once and then allowed to fade into the vast, gentle quiet. The world has collapsed, not in violence, but in mercy, so that you can finally fall all the way into sleep. When the world finishes its soft collapse, there is a moment where nothing moves, not the air, not the space, not even the thought of direction. It's like standing inside a held breath, not tense, not expectant, just perfectly, delicately paused. And then, from within that quiet, a shape forms, not abruptly, not as a structure rising, more like the dream deciding to give itself one last outline before you drift too deep to notice outlines at all. It begins as a faint vertical line in the darkness, then a second, parallel to it, then a horizontal bar near the top, completing the suggestion. A doorway, the simplest doorway you've ever seen. No frame, no handle, no hinges, no texture, just an opening drawn in the dim, as if someone traced the memory of a door onto fog. You don't know if you're meant to walk through it, or rest before it, or simply recognize it. But you feel, in some quiet instinct deeper than logic, that this doorway is not here to lead you into another dream, or another scene, or another self. It's here to let you fall. You step closer. Not because the dream urges you, it's far more gentle than that, but because every part of you is ready for the last movement before surrender. The air changes as you approach. It grows warmer first, a soft, soothing warmth that feels like the inside of a blanket you've had for years, the one with threads worn tender by time. Then it cools slightly, the way air cools when someone lifts a thick comforter before placing it around you. Warmth, then coolness, then stillness, layers settling into the exact temperature the body craves before sleep. The doorway doesn't glow, but the darkness beyond it is different, thicker, softer, not emptiness, more like a room made of warmth and hush. You take another step. Behind you, the dream erases what little remained of the path, not as punishment, not as urgency, just because you won't need it anymore. Ahead, the doorway widens, not physically, but perceptually, like it is adjusting itself to match the shape of your presence. You reach the threshold. Nothing stops you. Nothing insists. Nothing pulls. The dream never forces. Instead, it offers. And the offering is this: a place where thinking becomes optional, where awareness becomes heavy, where breath becomes the only remaining story. You stand at the doorway, and the darkness inside feels low and warm, like a den carved deep into soft earth, a safe darkness, a resting darkness, a darkness that doesn't hide anything, because there's nothing left to hide from. The dream has stripped away every image, rooms, corridors, echoes, presences, until only this remains, a space made entirely for drifting. You lean forward gently, and as your weight shifts, the air seems to meet you, catch you, hold you. This darkness is not the void. It is the final room of the night. A room without walls, without floor, without ceiling, but with a feeling you've known since childhood, when falling asleep felt like sinking into warm sand or being carried by invisible arms. The doorway lets you cross its threshold without ceremony. No vision changes, no sound shifts, no new world appears. The dream understands what you need now is not another story, but the end of story, a place where narrative dims and sensation takes over. Your breath guides the way. In, the space feels wider. Out, the space feels deeper. In, Something in your chest loosens. Out. Your thoughts slip further apart, like boats drifting away from their docks. You step fully inside. The doorway disappears behind you in the same quiet way it arrived. Not shutting, not closing. Simply dissolving into the dark until all that remains is you and the sensation of being held by something vast and gentle. Your arms feel heavier now, your legs softer, your eyelids warm. This room, if it can be called a room, doesn't move. It doesn't whisper. It doesn't show you anything. Its purpose is singular, to cradle the last threads of your awareness until they slip quietly from your grasp. You realize something as you drift further inward. This door wasn't an exit. It wasn't an entrance. It was permission. Permission to stop attending the dream. Permission to stop examining yourself. Permission to let go of the echoes, of the other selves, of the lucid clarity, of the path, of the world, of the story. Here, there is only rest. Deep, soft, unstructured rest. You lie down, or perhaps you feel the memory of lying down, and the darkness folds around you as gently as sleep itself. There is only one chapter left now, the descent, the soft, heavy fall into the quiet at the bottom of the night. There is a moment, right after the doorway dissolves, right before the dream fully releases its hold, when your awareness drifts in a slow, gentle circle, not rising, not falling, just circling, like a leaf suspended in warm air. You don't feel your body clearly anymore, only the outline of it, only the idea of it. A faint pressure where your limbs should be, a soft glow where your chest expands and contracts, a quiet warmth where your thoughts rest behind your forehead. Everything else is distance, everything else is softness. The dark around you has changed again. It no longer feels like a room or like the inside of a dream. It feels like something deeper, older, quieter, a depth the mind only reaches when the night has fully accepted it. You're not standing, you're not walking, you're not even floating anymore. You are sinking, slowly, safely, naturally, as though gravity has discovered a gentler version of itself made specifically for sleep. There is no fear in sinking, not here, not in this soft dark, because the descent is not a fall, it's a return to the part of you that only comes awake when the rest of you sleeps, the part that remembers how to rest without needing permission. The dream hums faintly around you, a warmth, a tonal vibration, a low-frequency comfort that feels like a memory from before you could name anything. Even thoughts move differently now. They don't come as sentences, they come as drifting impressions. A sense of heavy sheets, the idea of a warm pillow, the soft glow of a bedside lamp you turned off hours ago, or maybe weeks, or maybe in another life. Time doesn't exist in this part of the dream, neither does story, or memory, or identity. What remains isn't the version of you that asks questions, or the version that carries worries, or the version that tries to understand things. What remains is the version of you that simply rests. You feel it clearly. A deep, instinctive quiet forming inside your chest, like a tide returning to its moon, like a veil lowering, like a hand resting on your back. You drift further. The darkness thickens, but not in weight, in texture. It becomes softer, warmer, more padded, like lying inside a cocoon made of hush. Like sinking into a mattress that forms perfectly to your body, like letting your head fall back into the deepest pillow imaginable. There is no need to see. There is no need to reach. There is no need to know. All that remains is breath. A slow inhale, cool, distant, pulling you deeper inward. A slower exhale, warm, heavy, melting something small behind your sternum. You can feel the real world lightly now, not fully, not enough to wake you, just enough to remind you that your body is safe beneath you, held by the bed, sheltered by the dark. The dream curls around that awareness like a protective shape, shielding it from sharpness, from noise, from thought. In this stage, awareness doesn't vanish. It dissolves. The edges blur, the center drifts, and the idea of you grows wonderfully, comfortably vague. You are not disappearing. You are widening, spreading into calm, letting go of definition, becoming something softer than consciousness. The descent deepens. Your breath slows again, not because you are trying, but because your body has taken over. In, a velvet dark rises to meet you. Out, your weight sinks further into whatever holds you. Maybe the dream, maybe the bed, maybe the dark, maybe all three. Thought and breath begin to sink in long, heavy intervals, gaps stretching between one awareness and the next. Between each breath, there is a little more silence, a little more stillness, a little more space where nothing is required of you. You drift through those widening spaces like a slow-moving star in an infinite, gentle night. Somewhere far above, so far you can barely sense it, the dream waits, not watching, not controlling, just resting in the place where dreams go when they have finished their work. It doesn't need to guide you anymore. You're beyond the rooms and the corridors and the cells. You're even beyond the door. There is only depth now, depth and weight, depth and warmth, depth and peace. A softness fills your limbs, not a tingling, not a sensation, just an absence of anything that requires attention. Your hands drift out of consciousness first, as though they've already reached the bottom of the night. Your arms follow, then your legs, your torso, your shoulders, and finally, your thoughts, not all at once, not in a drop, but in a long, slow dimming like a lamp, lowering itself one fraction of a fraction of a fraction at a time. There is a point, you may already be at it, where you cannot tell if the darkness around you is part of the dream, or part of your room, or part of the place. Sleep takes you when it wants to hold you most gently. Your awareness flickers, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion, out of surrender, out of readiness. If you try to think, nothing comes. If you try to remember, the effort dissolves. If you try to listen, you hear only breath, your breath, and the space around it. One last inhale, slow, calm, steady. One last exhale, even slower, heavier, pulling you down like an anchor made of warmth and quiet. And then, with all the softness of a closing hand, with all the gentleness of a dimming star, with all the calm of a sky lowering itself over the sea, you drop, not suddenly, not sharply, not frighteningly. You drop the way snow falls, the way dusk becomes night, the way a long-held breath finally lets itself go, into sleep, real sleep, deep sleep, the sleep that mends, the sleep that holds you beneath thought, beneath dream, beneath everything, the sleep that waits for you at the very bottom of the night, and you sink quietly, completely, safely, all the way down.